Unrivaled just wrapped up its opening weekend and the ratings are in. So did they live up to the hype? What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel DeMita, and welcome to the Courtside Club. Today, Sky is going to be co-hosting with me because she just seems to be so excited that we're filming right now. Are you happy? I don't have the heart to kick her out, so this might be the way that we're filming today's video. This might be a little distracting, babe. No! You cannot bite it. So the numbers are in, you guys, for Unrivaled's first day. Unrivaled's opening games outpaced last year's average WNBA regular season games on cable by 50%, excluding games involving Caitlin Clark, who is obviously not playing in Unrivaled. So the first game that was on Friday averaged 313,000 views, and that was for the Mist going up against the Lunar Owls. Both of those teams, the Mist is the team with Brianna Stewart, the Lunar Owls is the team with Nafisa Collier, the two founders. And then the second game of the evening averaged 311,000 views. That was the Rose versus Vinyl. With that being said, I think that around 300,000 views is pretty good for opening weekend. For what Unrivaled is, it is a 3v3 league. It is something for these women to do during the off season. And I didn't know. I didn't have expectations for what the numbers would look like, but I feel like seeing those, I feel like those are pretty good numbers. Now, are those numbers good enough to make this league a sustainable league year after year? That I'm not sure of. That's up to the investors. That's up to the television network, and we will just have to see. But with that, you guys, I did want to share with you my opening thoughts on Unrivaled, my initial thoughts on Unrivaled. I did watch the games on Friday and some of, not the full games on Saturday, but I did tap into the games on Saturday as well. Monday, I did not watch because I was watching Ohio State win a national championship. That was a great feeling. But my initial thoughts when watching Unrivaled. So on Friday, I was pleasantly surprised by the pace and by the entertainment value of the games, and especially the first game when it was the Lunar Owls versus the Mist. They were really pushing the pace the entire game, and from that game I was able to quickly realize how some players' games are going to be exposed in a good way in 3v3 and some players' games are going to be exposed in a bad way in 3v3 because there is not much room to hide on this court. Like I talked about in other videos, I thought that the biggest obstacle for Unrivaled that they would need to overcome for this season was the actual product on the court, because 3v3 does not always translate to a television audience. I thought the full court format was really fun. I thought for the most part in most of these games it was good basketball. Now moving on to day two, when the Phantom played and they got blown out by about 30 points, that is when I started to see, oh, this game can look really good, but there's a risk of it looking really bad if people aren't making shots, if people aren't hitting shots, or players are starting to get tired. And that's what I started to see in the second day's game. Like that game with the Phantom that ended up being a blowout was kind of unwatchable. And I also am just going to, that's one of the things I wanted to bring up here. I feel like I'm all over in this when I'm telling you my initial thoughts, but we need to be able to be more honest with our constructive criticism of women's basketball. And that was also one thing I noticed even with the commentary, sideline interviews, with the pregame show, postgame show. It felt like all of those were put in place as like a marketing tool for the play on the court. And it was just overwhelming praise, 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 praise. And while I'm in agreement, this is such a cool thing that Nafisa Collier has done, that Brianna Stewart has put together. The fact that these players do not have to go play overseas, players who have been in the WNBA for many, many years, getting to stay home, getting to train in world-class facilities, all of the things that they did are incredible. And that is all great things to point out, but we don't need to, like during the games, just be constantly praising and not calling out certain things like regular play-by-play commentary in studio shows would be doing. If you flip on an NBA game and one of the teams is getting blown out by 30, you're going to have some things to say about it in that studio show to constructively criticize what's going on. And I think for me, that was a little bit of a turnoff with some of the commentary, and maybe that's just weekend one and they'll get into a groove, but we have to start treating, and that's just an overarching thing I feel like in women's basketball media in general, there really hasn't been much room for criticism. And if you do criticize anything, it's like, oh, you're hating, just turn it off, this and that. And it's like, you guys should see this, the kind of stuff that I say when I'm watching college men's basketball or when I'm watching the NBA or when I'm watching football, for God's sake, like the things that you say to be able to constructively criticize someone who is a professional athlete, and it's just breaking down the game and making it better in that sense. And so I love Lisa Leslie. I actually work with her on the Big Three. She is a coach for the Big Three, and she does do some commentary for Big Three also. But I could see her biting her tongue a couple of times during the broadcast, just trying to, keep it light, keep it upbeat. But that is something with Lisa. Like, I would love to see her break down a player's game and say, this person should work on this. If this person could perfect the mid-range, that would take their game to the next level. If this person had a better left hand, if this person utilized their drop step more to the basket and was able to finish at the rim, if she says those things, like, those hold a lot of weight because they're coming from such an incredible player that is Lisa Leslie. So that was one criticism that I had just overall of the broadcast. But again, it might be weekend one. They're just trying to prop everyone up, make everybody feel good about Unrivaled. Now, going back to the game that I was talking about that was a blowout, it was the Phantom versus Laces game where they lost 48-86. Now, this was actually surprising to me because the Phantom has a pretty stacked roster. So they have Brittany Griner, Satu Sabali, they have Sabrina Ionescu, Natasha Cloud, and Katie Lou Samuelson. The one person who stood out to me though was Sabrina. Now, she started out slow. She ended up coming back into the game and hitting a few threes and doing her thing. But during this game, and then also clips that I saw in their Monday night game, she seemed to be favoring her hand still a little bit. And that was something where she did have surgery after the season and she was ramping back up. But I found this article before she was even going into Unrivaled, and here's what she had to say about her injury. She said, "I'm a little rusty, but knocking the rust off a little bit and excited to get live reps and knowing that it'll take care of itself as I play through this season." She said her recovery timeline was a little sped up because of Unrivaled. She said, "If there wasn't this going on, I probably could have taken a little bit more time of just rehabbing and letting it heal." And that was something that fans were noticing, that she seemed to be like rubbing her hand every once in a while. Like, there is maybe some lingering pain that's going on. I don't understand the exact timeline or the ramp up process for this specific hand injury. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's just soreness that she's working through. But that was something that stood out to me a little bit. And then also with her team getting blown out essentially twice in one weekend that a lot of us weren't expecting because they did have a pretty stacked roster, she also had this to say after that second game. She said, "Obviously, this is in the middle of our off season, and I think there's kind of a fine line in understanding you're here to get better and continue to work on your game, but also I can't be mentally locked in like I am for the W season here now, or I'd be burnt out by the time the W starts because I'm so competitive and take everything so seriously." And obviously in the game you see that, but I think off the court, being able to just be around a lot of great players, I'm taking full advantage of that. For me, it's kind of finding balance and understanding how fun it is to be able to play in a league like this where you're able to surround yourself with the best players, continue to work on your game and get better, but also enjoy kind of being around one another. When I was watching this, I remember the first game, my initial thoughts were, wow, these women are going to be in great shape by the end of the season because they are running a lot. They're getting a lot of time spent on the court. There's just so much action. You have to play defense every time down the court. That was my first reaction. And my number two reaction was, is this a product that's actually great for the casual fan as well? Or is this almost like an off-season training camp for these women? And I think the answer is still it's an off-season training camp for these women so that they are able to stay home, so that they are able to make money. And I think all of that is great. And I think the fact that they were able to raise so much money, they were able to get a television deal, they were able to do all these things. All of those things is great. It's just interesting to think about what the future might be if it stays the way that it is now. Because something else to note also is WNBA will be playing all of these games in the same arena every single time. And that is something, if we think back to like NBA bubble days when they were playing all of those games in those weird courts where there wasn't that many fans, that was a similar atmosphere to Unrivaled. And the court, by the way, looks beautiful. The graphics, the lighting, all of the things looks absolutely beautiful, but you didn't get that crowd energy like you do get from any other basketball game. Like, the crowd does play into it whether you're there in person or not. And I haven't been there in person, so I don't know what it's like actually being in that intimate setting. But even the way that the cameras were set up, they were set up to where we saw the benches, but most of the fans were actually on the other side, so we didn't get to see as much of that. And so from a fan experience from sitting at home, and myself, I enjoyed it because I enjoy basketball and I enjoyed seeing the different matchups of these players that I normally might not see just in a basketball setting, because you have like teammates going up against one another. You have players guarding each other that in a regular 5v5 WNBA game, you wouldn't get to see that. However, does that translate to a casual fan after these first couple weekends? Will the casual fans still think that it is exciting to tune in to this kind of a setting of 3-on-3 basketball? And that is where I'm not so sure. Sabrina said this, and I think her mindset from what she said, and she is a competitor, and it's not like she went out there and didn't play hard. She played hard enough. She is treating Unrivaled for her as a way for her to her eyes are still focused on the WNBA. This is just a way for her to get better. And so for her, win or lose, it doesn't matter too much. She's getting paid. Sabrina probably doesn't even need this paycheck, by the way. She's getting paid to be there, to train, to hang out with some of her friends, to get some reps in, to work on certain things. And I think that that's fabulous for the women. That is what they are there to do. That is the goal. Does that translate long term to the casual fan? The full court 3v3, they did a great job with that. That was, I think half court wouldn't have been as exciting as this is, but there is a bit of entertainment value that is missing. And if the arena itself, from my understanding, only holds 800 people, they're going to need to expand in some way, maybe in some time in the next few years, if they're able to continue to be successful and the numbers at least stay where they are. They can start touring this thing like the Big Three does. They can go to different cities, go to different arenas, maybe franchise teams like the Big Three is also doing. I think aside from that, they're going to have to think beyond just this is an off-season way for us to stay in the States. Editing rad here, there's a couple more things that I totally forgot to mention in this video. So one, part of the reason that Sabrina really needs to heal her hand is because I am 99% sure that she will be competing in the three-point competition once again at NBA All-Star Weekend. And I'm pretty sure Caitlin will also be there with her. We need her for that. And not only do we need her for that, the WNBA needs her there for that too. That is just a crazy marketing opportunity for the W, for Sabrina, for Caitlin. That's number one. Number two, Nafisa Collier is already MVP of this league. She was unstoppable. She was unstoppable on the offensive end, and she stopped literally everyone that she guarded on the defensive end. This 3v3 full court format for Nafisa Collier is perfect for her. So if there's any one player that you just have to tune into their games, she would be the one. I was so impressed with her play, and yeah, just like 10s across the board. Also can't wait to see her for this upcoming WNBA season. Thirdly, Brittney Griner. I was very unimpressed with her play, and I know that she's bigger. I know that it's a quicker pace, but she is too big to be not dominating, especially when there is no backside defense. There is no help. The Phantom should not be losing like that, because they should be able to give the ball to Brittney Griner and she just goes to work on whoever is guarding her. She is the biggest person in this league. She should be leading in rebounds, but I don't even think she's top 3. She should be leading in rebounds, and she should be dominating way more than she is. I don't even care if it's a quicker pace. Like, I think maybe as her conditioning gets up, maybe she will be doing better, but I think that she should be dominating. Also, Lexi Hall has maybe seen 5 minutes of play throughout the 2 games that she's played. I'm not sure why they're not playing her at all, but Rose BC is definitely not utilizing her. And Kate Martin is absolutely killing it, and I'm so happy for her. She is shooting threes, she's defending, she's running the floor, she's literally doing all the things, and I'm so happy for her. And Golden State, you got a good one. And lastly, I'm not even sure her name, and my apologies, but there's somebody who, one of the hosts in the studio show, continues to pronounce players' names wrong. And TNT, you have to do better than that. Whoever that host is, you also need to do better than that. On any given night, there's only a chance you could possibly talk about a max number of 24 women. That's it. Give her those pronunciations and make sure that you say those properly, because it's just not a good look for women's basketball when the people who are hosting it aren't pronouncing names properly. But you guys let me know in the comments below what you think. Of course, thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it, and click that little subscribe button, because we upload new videos every single week. And with that, you guys, I'll see you next time. Oiana.